I'm Rob, and we're going to look at Javalin and DInject controllers. So this is about bringing dependency injection and @controller style to Javalin users. So we get the same programming model as JAX-RS, basically. We're using dependency injection to help us with testability and modularity. So we can bring in controllers from other jars, for example. We're doing this using source code generation via annotation processes. So that's important in the sense that we keep ourselves nice and lightweight. There's no reflection, no class path scanning, no dynamic proxies. So we're using two annotation processes. There's a DInject generator. This is for doing the dependency injection. And then there's the Javalin generator, which is handling the web routes. So quickly, before we get into some actual code, we have a sort of an @controller, an @path, and we can have dependencies, and we can have methods on it such as @get, @put, etc. And these can have path parameters, and essentially from that the annotation processor will generate something like this. So this is code there here for the Javalin API builder. It's registering a path with path parameters. The path parameters will be read and type converted, and then ultimately we're going to call the controller method here. And the thing to note here is that this is generated code, that this is effectively a bean that implements a web route. And the important thing there is that means that we can then look at our dependency injection context and get all the beans that implement the web routes, and we can register them with Javalin. So this is basically saying find all the controllers, register them with Javalin. So that's effectively one of the key goals. Some notes here, we're going to show this in code, but very quickly. We can use @roles. We want to be able to use Javalin context pretty much all the time. And there's built-in type conversions for path parameters and query parameters. And we throw invalid path argument exception for if we get type conversion errors. Okay, so let's get into some code and have a look, see what this means. So here I've got a little example application. I've got a controller. So this is our controller with a @path, and here we've got a bunch of methods. We've got get, post, get, and a delete. So here we've got our path parameters, ID and name, and you'll note that ID matches the name of the method argument, method parameter. And here we've got name also matches name. And because other parameter here is a method parameter isn't in our path parameters, it must be a query parameter. So if I go and find code that calls this, I'm actually now in target generated sources. So this is hello controller $root. So this is source code that's generated by the annotation processor. And here we've got our Javalin API builder with our path, our full path, hello ID name. We've got our path parameters that are read, ID and name, type conversion here to an int. Other parameter is a query parameter, not a path parameter. And then we're calling our controller. If we go to our main, we've got our dependency injection context, find all our beans, beans that implement web route, and register them with Javalin. So let's run this. Actually, stop and run. Stop and run, and obviously Javalin's pretty fast. Okay, let's do something interesting. And we're going there. Hello, 1, 2, 3, 4, Frank. Something else. Here we go. Now let's go into controller route and add in a breakpoint, because I ran with debug. And if we do that again, obviously here in our source code that's generated, we've got get parameter ID, and we step through, and then we can step into our controller, for example. We're in our controller, step out, etc. So it's one of the joys of source code generation, is that it's very easy to debug, and it just becomes really nice and fast, because this is all becomes compiled code. So that's good. What I'm looking to do now is actually generate and write another controller, and then we can sort of see it build up and see how it works. So let's create a new controller. So for it to be a controller, we go add controller and add path. Foo. It's not particularly interesting until we do something, so we're going to do something very straightforward. We're going to sort of say get by ID or something. Oh, actually, make it long. We need a foo. Yeah, that'll do. Right, and then let's just say foo ID and something good. Okay, something good. Oh, we need a constructor for that. Whoa. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit here. We can do this. Ooh. That'll do. Okay, how are we going? Happy? Yeah, good. Right, so we've got our controller. We need to give it a get at get. Now, this isn't super flashy because I've got an ID and I'm not really passing it, but that's okay. Yeah, that's kind of funky, because it's, you can have a slash there or a non-slash there. Now I'm doing compile because it's an annotation processor. Yeah, actually, I'll just stop that. It's automatically generating the code when I compile with Java-C. So if I go and say, where's this method called? Here we go, we've got this thing. So I've got a foo controller $out, and this is source code that's generated. We can target generated sources. So we're going foo :ID. We're going to get a path param ID, convert it to a long, call our controller method, and return the JSON. So that's just going to be, right, it's going to be that. So we run this thing. We're /foo. So if we go /foo 42, we get something good. Good. So now let's just expand on this a little bit. This is a little bit silly, but never mind. And we go some, and then / other. So just to explain that, if we just go other, so because other starts with a colon here and it matches this thing, then this becomes a path parameter. So let's just chuck that in there. So this is a little bit odd, but that's okay. So we do a compile, and we should get some generated code adjustment here. Yeah, so here we go. Our path is now ID some other, and we can see our path parameters. So let's rerun that. Stop and rerun, please. And let's hit now. This should give us a 404. Yeah. So what we really want is 42 some something else. I always use banana. Okay, 42 banana, and that's all good. So just to clarify that, effectively our path parameters here, if we map them to our method params, then we're all happy chappies. If we add something else in here, not, what do I say? Crikey, I'll say not path. Right, okay, let's make it a string. Gosh, Rob, type buddy. Then what happens here is that not path is not in the path, and so it's treated as a query param. So I should probably do something slightly interesting with that. Got query parameter not path. All right. So what do we call it? Not path. Yeah. Okay, so just stop and rerun. We need that running, and we got this guy, and we go here, and we get this, not, and we got here null, which is expected, and then if we go, what's that, north path? Hopefully I got that right. Banana, apple. There we go, apple. Yep, sweet, good. All right. So that's not bad. Let's show something else which is pretty important here. So what's going to do is get other. This is going to be, I'm going to pass in the context. So this Javalin context, which is, so let's do a get because it's easy. So at this point, we want to be able to do something with the context in terms of we can get cookies, we can get headers, we can get form params, we can do all the sorts of things anything that we want to do, and it's important to be able to fall back to this. So the only thing to note is that if we have a path parameter, then we have to kind of specify it. So let's put in here name. Right. And then we can get everything that we want from context apart from, say, the path parameter here. So this is just something to note. It's we struggling here. Name. Right. So to again reiterate, what's the point here? The point here is that sometimes this is good, just using our simple types, ints, long, strings, local dates, etc., UUID. But a lot of times we want to be able to get cookies, headers. We want the full power of Javalin, and so that's what we want to do. We want context to be passed into our controller. So if we look here, I think I've compiled that. If we looked here, we know that the context is just something that can always be passed in to the controller. Term is a type and says, oh, you want the context, I'm going to pass it to you. Right. So that's pretty good. Now the other thing we want to talk about here is roles. Roles are really application specific in terms of the types. So essentially how this works is that if you define your own roles annotation and you find your own enum, which implements the Javalin role, which is what this is, then by naming convention that will be picked up. So if we specify add roles on this, so quickly, if we just look here, there's no roles specified on either of these guys. So if we put on here at roles, roles, yep, and let's say, well, it doesn't matter really, Now what happens is that's implied by the naming convention that it's an application role. So if we look here, we see this part here which is added, which specifies that you must have the admin role in order to be able to call this method. Now just to note, from a demo perspective, I've kind of been naughty here. My access manager doesn't really do any access control, so it always works, but that's okay. While I'm here, there's an exception mapping that's registered for invalid path. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate that. If we've got our foo controller that's taking a long here, so we're going foo long some other. If we try something that's not a long, so blah, then we get this invalid path argument. That's because in our main exception handler, go to the Rob, we're coming into here, invalid path exception, which is part of our DInject controller stuff. So this is part of the type conversion. So let's explain that a little bit. Where are we? Go into here. This is the generated code. This as long is actually a statically imported method from this path type conversion helper class that's in the controller. So this is doing our int long local date UUID conversion, and the exception that's being thrown on all of those things when it's invalid is this invalid path argument exception. So that gives us the ability to just hand it all as one exception, which is nice. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So I should show you. Let's say we've got our controller. This is all good, but actually one of the main things about the controller is that we want to do dependency injection. So let's create a dependency. Dependency. Okay, it doesn't exist yet. Let's put it into service. Again. Okay, so if we have a dependency which is a singleton annotation, then whoa, go slower, you'll get there faster. Dependency, that'll do. So with it being an @singleton, that's picked up by DInject. So very quickly, DInject is basically like Dagger. So it's source code dependency injection. So when we do save, compile on that, because it's a @singleton, it becomes a. I better do some other stuff here. Let me do that. Yeah, we don't need our controllers to be public in this sort of scenario here. That's fine. So let's use it for better or worse. Okay, where are we going? Do it in here, I guess. I need some other. Let's do blah. Okay, whatever. Let's just do it here. Hello. Okay, so it's a bit funky, but right. So didn't explain that yet. When let's run it first, and then I'll explain it. How about that? So we're going to go foo ID some other. I'm going to get our dependency hello. Okay, so let's rerun. Stop and rerun. What are we doing? Yeah. I'm going to make this 42 is a good number. That'll do. So we've got banana with my dependency appended to the name, which is what we were doing, what we were after. So that's great. So there's two things that are going on here. One is this controller stuff, which is here. So we're generating a route for the controller, and this is doing the Javalin mapping of path and params to the actual controller. The other thing that's going on, if we look in here, is we've got these $DI things, and that's doing the dependency injection as source code. So to build our foo controller, so we're building it here, we're newing it up, and we're getting a dependency, my dependency. So this is basically saying get the my dependency out of the context and put it into the constructor of foo controller and register it as a controller. If we looked at route DI, which is actually potentially just as interesting, foo route is a bean. It's being constructed. Get the foo controller and register it, and note that it implements the web routes interface. So this is when we do this register in terms of DI, it's saying it collects all the beans that implement this interface, and that is how we can get all the controllers, register them with Javalin. So quickly show you that. This is it. Dependency injection, get all of the beans that implement this interface, and with this, register all the routes. So if we went here, and then we went into the implementations. Oh, sorry. Shoot. Oh, what am I doing? Oh, that's not very good. That's not what I meant. I meant here. We've got foo controller, which implements web routes, and we've also got this other guy, hello controller. So I think I'm probably ready to stop. This is all good. There's kind of one little thing that I didn't explain. When we created our foo controller route, so this is the source code that's generated. It's at singleton. So this is the thing that then is picked up by DInject for dependency injection and generates this guy. So there's kind of two annotation processes, and they're actually both working. And when we actually generate our web route, that's actually then a singleton, and that's also picked up by dependency injection. So yeah, there's another video on dependency injection in its entirety, so I'll leave it at that. But essentially the magic source is that we build everything in order, and if we look at DI factory, this is the guts here. It's the secret source. Okay, that's it. So yeah, just quickly, at roles. Yep, as long as you create your annotation with the same name, it'll be picked up and assumed to be an application role. You can use Javalin context everywhere. It's got built-in type conversions for paths and stuff. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. And yeah, just go to DInject.io Javalin to get more information. Cheers.